let's start building the tail for the Banshee AIRACE. We're going to need a few things. Firstly, we're going to need the tail. So here we are, Z6, Z7, Z9 and Z10 are the parts that we need at this particular point. In fact, Z6 and Z7 are the first ones we're going to deal with. Let's put the rest to one side. So let's get these out of the plastic, the foam. It's quite hard to see the tabs when it's dark black colour. I think we're free. There we go, nearly. So we haven't finished yet. There are actually two tabs in the center here because we need to part these two pieces. So there we go. So this is the horizontal stabilizer. And this is the elevator. Just take that. There we go. Now the first thing we want to do is to actually, well, apart from obviously cut them out of the sprues and take off any excess material from the tabs. We need to stabilize that by putting a carbon fiber strip along the front edge of it. So let's go and get that and pop it on. The carbon fiber strip comes in this little bag here, which has a few more bits and pieces in. And here's the carbon fiber that we have in here, the strips. Two are round and of around about the same length, similar length. The other one is slightly longer and it's a flat profile rather than round. It's actually at 1 millimeter by about 0.4, 0.5 millimeters. But that's the bit we need, the strip rather than the round tubes. So we'll just pop those to one side. And what we need to do with this is we need to adhere it to the front edge of our elevator along there. And that will stabilize it. We're actually putting the 1 millimeter side, the wider side, against the face there. So we'll just run our glue, a bead of it all the way down that front or leading edge. Turn it around, it'll be easier. And not only does it stabilize the two elevators, it also stops twisting as well. Because obviously we have the control horn on one side, on one of the elevators, and we rely on the strength of the connection to lift the other elevator as well. So that's why we're putting this carbon fiber here. Great, okay. We'll let that settle in. Go, and next step, we're actually going to grab a plastic part part P8, and this is the central hinge that connects the two parts, the two flight surfaces. It's got a slot in it, there you can see, and it's also got some scores which actually create the hinge itself. So that's where the elevator pivots from the horizontal stabilizer, like so. Go. So that's actually going to attach on. You can see matches up with the graphics on there. But what we're actually going to do is attach it to the underside of our elevator first, because you can see, if I bring this up to the camera, you've got a slot here. You can see I'm just putting the knife through there. That slot is where the control horn goes. And on here we also have a slot, which is also where the control horn goes. So what we need to do is just marry those two up so that one sits over the other. And that should also provide a nice central position for our hinge piece. So let's just add some glue to the underside of our central hinge. And then pop that in place. There we go. So I'm also going to put some glue on the other side here, like so. And I'm just going to dab that onto the underside of the horizontal stabilizer, like so. Then remove, and then we'll bring those two back together again. There's not a lot of glue that moved over from side to side. Let's just do that again. We want this to be a fairly strong bond. Let's give that another go. And also we need a gap of around about 0.5 millimeter between the two parts to allow for the movement of the elevator. So there we go. Pull it apart. We'll let that dry off. Whilst that's drying off, we can actually put together the control horn for the elevator. And that's actually going to be P9. There we go. Now this is a folding piece, folds on its around on itself. It's got a score that sits up the center there. I'm just going to give it a little bit extra flexibility. I don't want it fighting against the glue, so that'll fold over like so on itself. But before we do that, I'm just going to take the knife. Oh, let's get that back on there. Take the knife and just make sure on the underside of the part that there's no excessive plastic from the laser cutting sticking through those holes that would sort of keep them apart somewhat. So let's just apply some glue. Try and avoid putting glue over the holes, but we can actually just push some wire through those holes once they are on the aircraft, or we are attempting to attach the control rods to them. And we can push wire through just to make sure the any excess glue there can be cleared out. So let's just leave that glue to dry so it becomes a contact adhesive, and we can pop these two together. As I said, a 1/2 mil to 1 mil gap. Make sure it's sitting centrally. So that's not to line up the graphics, but obviously to get the edges equal, top and bottom, side to side. If the graphics line up, then that's a bonus. So there we go. And we have a couple of stickers too that we need to stick on. S2 and S3. So S2. They both have graphics on, and the graphics are different. So S2 definitely sits on this side because it is black and white itself. So let's just turn that around. So let's stick that on the one side for now, and just make sure that the gap is maintained. So we have a slight twist. I want to get that black line following the one underneath. That'll do it. There we go. Then a rather more sophisticated graphic on S3. So this needs a little more precision when attaching, so you can see where it goes. There we go. So now we have a working elevator. Excellent. So our little control horn can now be fitted. We'll just fold it in on itself so the glue comes into effect. It locks together, and then that goes into the little slot that we have I showed you earlier in the plastic hinge. That should pop in there. It's also going to pop out again because we're going to glue it. A little bit of foam to foam. Go. That into place, and then just let the glue dry, And that's our control horn in place and our horizontal stabilizer completed. Nearly. Right, onto the vertical stabilizer and rudder. So here we have Z9 and Z10. There's the rudder. There's the stabilizer. So these sit neatly together like so. And we hold these together with a sticker. And that sticker is S4. So let's just get S4 up here. And when you've removed S4, it should be fairly obvious how everything goes together. Not only is there a line down the middle to show you where the hinge line is, but you've also got cutouts top and bottom to show you where the gap sits. So the right way around. That's going to sit on there. Make sure we've got the gaps right. And then if I turn it over that way, it's going to be easier to position and ensure that the gap is consistent. There we go. So there we have our hinged vertical stabilizer and rudder. We can actually, at this point, we can also attach our control horn to the rudder itself. So what we need for that is P10 and P11. Now P11 is pretty much exactly the same as P9, which we just attached to the elevator, but it's different color. It goes together the same way, so the same process is used. I'm just going to give it a little bit of encouragement down the score line. Make sure that it can fold over on itself. Get rid of any excess material that the laser has left. Then add our adhesive. Now whilst we wait for the adhesive to dry, we'll put our little parts over there, and I want to show you something that we can do to these parts if you have one of these tools, and that is we can compress the edges so that we reduce the white edge there, and also we may well be benefiting the aerodynamics of the aircraft as well. So all I'm doing is running the ball, the larger ball, around the edge of the material, and pressing downwards as I do to compress the foam at the edge of the part. And then I'll turn over and do exactly the same on the other side. And this squashes the edges together that have the coloration on, and you'll see that the white edge is very much more reduced. You can also do this to the trailing edges as well. And just make sure you do it both sides so it's provides a symmetrical airfoil, if you like. Go. Now, it's silly. I should have done this before I'd put the control horn on. I could actually probably pop it out. There we go. The glue isn't set yet, so I'm just going to pop that to one side, and then we can do our thing. There we go, all done. So I'll just refresh the glue on this control horn, and we'll just pop it back in place. There we go. Okay, let's bring our other control horn together. There we go, and the little plate that it sits on. Oh. Just pop that into place. Just come a little bit closer, so I'm just pushing that through the plate, like so. That should pop into place. That's a fairly solid, although wobbly, connection. But once we get that onto the rudder, and then it all tightens up. So it's all fine. Well, we'll just pop that off, pop some glue on, and put it back, and that's it done. There we go. Once again, let the glue dry. Now, on the fuselage itself, you should have maintained the foam that was in this slit here that you can see in this aircraft. So I'll just bring this a little bit closer. So we have a slit here, and I've already cut out the material from the slit itself, but it's just a matter of running the scalpel down the score marks, and you should end up with a slit either side of the fuselage, ready to take the horizontals into place on the fuselage, like so. So everything should line up. Just check for horizontalness. Mine isn't very horizontal at all, so I need to make some adjustments there. It's skewed to one side at the moment. I just need to make sure what needs to be done. So just need to remove a little material, and in fact what I'm going to do is just squash that material down. So I'm just going to run the back of the knife down one side of the slot, like so. And then I'm going to turn over and run it on the top side of the other slot. So rather than trying to aggressively remove material, I'm just trying to sort of passively coax the tail into the right position. So it was probably during the process of bringing the two halves of the fuselage together that the slight twist occurred, but it's best we notice it now and try and make adjustments for it once the whole thing is built. So I'm just going in with the business end of the knife at the moment, just to remove a very small bit of material from the top of the slot at the back. And then we'll present it again. Let's see how it fares. Well, that's a lot better. Let's just get it properly positioned. Just get rid of that. Some of the material still sitting there. Yeah, that's near perfect now. I'm just eyeballing it from the back. Once in place, it might need a little encouragement, but I'm pretty happy with that. So let's get some glue in place and get this part fixed in. So I'm actually going to run some glue down the slot itself. In fact, I'm going to clear my nozzles first. Go. So a little glue down the slot there, and the other side too. And then I'm just going to, on the underside here, I'm just going to run some glue down the center there, where it comes into contact with the keel. And then we will position there we go. So the most important thing now is that we get it sitting nice and centrally. Obviously we've got the slots either side that indicate where it sits on the fuselage at the front of the slot. But what we need to make sure is that it's obviously sitting perpendicular to the direction of the fuselage. Okay, right. Well, let's leave that to settle down, let the glue dry, and then we will fit the horizontals. The verticals. Let us attach our rudder and vertical stabilizer. So the best way to attach this, obviously these tabs here need to slot into this slot that we've got here, and that's quite difficult to do if you're just sort of inserting the whole thing in like that. What needs to happen is you need to rotate it in. So you need to keep the lower portion of this structure to one side of the fuselage, so that you can just rotate that through. Obviously the the cutout here is for the movement of the elevator, so you need to pop the elevator through into that that cavity there, and then you should be able to rotate that whole structure into the hole like so, and you have your tail in place. Now, obviously we haven't glued that yet, so we need to reverse that process. And add some glue to the proceedings. So we're going to put some onto the lower edge of our vertical stabilizer, like so. I'm going to put some down the sides where it goes into the slot. I'm putting it just below where the slot is, so that hopefully as it pushes in, the glue will be dragged upwards. And I'm also going to put a little bit at the base of the, well, it's not the rudder, it's still part of the vertical stabilizer structure, which is a little different from the biplane, which doesn't have that little extension at the back, making it moderately shorter, marginally shorter, maybe that's the better word. So let's rotate this in, try not to get glue everywhere. There we go. And then we can check our vertical alignment. And the element of the vertical stabilizer that's at the bottom there just sits on top of, or in the middle of, the 2mm keel that sort of sits at the back there. So there we have our Banshee AIRACE with its tail feathers on and fuselage almost all covered. We've still got a few elements to do. Right, on to the wings.